My pleasure. Happy New Year. Yeah, well, those are good questions. Well, first of all, there has been a lot of change, and that change was necessary in my view. In fact, I ran saying that we were going to shake up City Hall, and there were some things that we needed to do to make the kinds of changes so that government operates the way it ought to. Of course, very early in the new year, we changed city managers, and we brought in Jesus Garza as our interim city manager. He brought in a quality team of folks with good common sense and knowing what they were doing. And then we saw some additional changes. For example, we saw change at Austin Energy. We knew that there needed to be some change there, and we saw some change. We saw change in our Homeland Security and Emergency Management, what we call HESM, that program. We also needed some change at the airport, and so we have change at the airport. And in my view, we're several years behind where we ought to be on getting that airport running, but we've had a busy year in that regard. And I could go on and on. The way you, I think, do that so that even with the change, you maintain it's not chaotic, I guess would be the way I'd say that, is that you empower people that are here and are not the ones that are leaving. You empower them to help be part of the process in a way that maybe they weren't before, and part of the reason you needed to see change. And you also bring in high quality people to serve in those new positions. One example, one of the big changes was that the assistant city manager over public safety. We now have, we've had for the past year, an interim assistant city manager over public safety, but it just so happens to be someone that's a former acting chief of police for the city of Austin and someone that really knows what's going on there. So that's part of what you do, and I think the city manager and working with the council has done a really good job in that regard. Another part of your question was how we see it, some of those changes and how that's impacting. One of the things that we made a change was in the area of homeless services and addressing the needs of people living homeless. Well, we did something that's a big change, but it's also one that will assure that we're a lot less chaotic and more sustainable, and that is to create a specific office that's in charge of homeless services and put a really qualified manager in that position. In David Gray. And so we're already seeing results from that. And we'll see more in 2024 because that was an area, in my view, that needed some serious changes. And they've been made, and then we'll start seeing even more fruits from that. Well, no, I'm happy with what we're seeing so far. I'll give a couple of examples. One is that when I came into office a year ago, we knew we were way behind on the number of emergency shelter beds. And that makes a real difference for a couple of reasons. One is we know that even if you're wanting someone to be in permanent supportive housing, that the longer people are on the street, the more difficult it is to get them into some sort of supportive housing. And so you want to try to get people off the street more rapidly. It's almost a mirror of how long it takes for the length of time they've been on the street and how long it takes to see the help actually pay off. So you need those emergency shelter beds. In addition, the public has told us they want the camping ban enforced. But it's very difficult to enforce the camping ban in any humane way if you don't have a place for people to go. Not to mention the fact that the state has also mandated enforcement of the camping ban. So one of the things that we did that I'm very pleased with is we've increased the number of shelter beds in a very positive way. We opened the marshaling yard, that's about 300 beds. We just have reopened what we call the 8th Street shelter. It's the old Salvation Army facility. There's already women that are in that facility. That will be a dedicated facility for women and transgender people living homeless that are transgender. That'll be up to 150 beds, and I think probably even a few more. So we're making progress. In addition to that, we've begun the process on the $65 million that I was able to get the state to give in grants to nonprofits in the city. We're seeing, $5 million of that has already gone to entities that are doing stabilization of people that could end up being homeless if we're not careful. And so we're on the front end of that. And we're very close to beginning the process of taking some of the rest of that money, it won't be all of that $60 million, and being able to have tiny shelters that are non-congregate shelters. So yes, I am very pleased with the progress. We've got a ways to go. I won't be satisfied. I'm not satisfied yet, but that's not a negative statement. It's just that we've done well, but we got more to do. Well, both important and good questions. First, with regard to the ordinance, so that folks will know, the ordinance that I'll bring forward this month, we'll probably pass it at the February 1st meeting, would be my guess. But we're already talking about it'll be talked about soon. But that ordinance is to continue an ordinance that we passed back early in this year. When you don't have a contract, we wanted to make sure that our police felt supported and they knew we had their backs. And so what we did was we made sure through ordinance that we were guaranteeing salaries. In fact, they got a 4% pay increase, that we were guaranteeing benefits and retirement. And we even created a program to incentivize people so that they would come into our cadet classes. And we also created an additional step in the retirement program so that we'd be in a position to better retain police officers. We need to redo that ordinance. We need to do it again is what I mean. And I want to do it in plenty of time before the current ordinance expires so that our police officers will know we still have their back. So I anticipate we'll do that. We'll be talking about that during the month of January, and it'll pass right at the end of the month of January. With regard to a contract, I think there's agreement that the best approach to attract and retain police officers is to get us onto a long-term contract. That requires everybody to come to the table, and so we will be talking with the Austin Police Association, the new president, about how we get back to the table. I will say that my conversations with him since his election have been very positive. He speaks real clearly, and I can hear him clearly, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with him. So I guess I would say I'm very hopeful. Well, I would disagree a little bit with the way you phrase that. First of all, there has been an ongoing debate in this community for about a decade about how best to address the needs of getting more housing on the ground. And so it's not like somebody just woke up one day and said, well, we haven't talked about this, let's do this now. In fact, there was Code Next and the follow-up to Code Next. I mean, all of the different things. So this has been an ongoing discussion. This isn't new. This isn't new thinking. It's a different approach. And instead of an all or nothing, everywhere, all at once sort of approach that was the kind of the Code Next that got us nothing instead of everything, everywhere, all at once. You did get some litigation, and the city lost that litigation. That was before my time, but and so we actually learned from that, and what we tried to do this time that's why we had the joint meeting with the Planning Commission. It's why everybody got notice about what was going on. We attempted to do this in a far more transparent, open way. So I wouldn't say that it was implement and then study. I would say instead it was learn from what's gone on for almost a decade and then utilize that for implementation. But importantly, there are legitimate thoughts and concerns about how it will play out. So it is incumbent upon us, and that's why I offered the amendment that I offered that was unanimously supported by the council, which was that we are going to routinely, very early and throughout, collect data about what is actually happening with this so that it's not a theoretical, we're not playing a game of theory here about how this is actually going to work. We will have real data, and that will allow the city to calibrate as it needs to. It will allow the city to make decisions about whether there's an unintended consequence and change that. Or is there something we need that's working so well, we need to do it even more? So those kinds of things. So there was a lot of learning from the past that led to us approaching it differently and I think better, getting us to a result, which we had gone basically a decade with no result. We can now get to a result, and then we're going to follow that up by assessing it with metrics and real information. Well, I wouldn't have voted for it if I didn't think that it was needed and I didn't think that it was a positive step. I also really believe that what we ought to do is assess it as we go along, and that's why I carried that additional amendment. Sure. Oh, yeah. Great question, and one that, when I ran, I said I was going to work better, to have a better relationship with the state. When we went into the legislative session, and that's what I was referring to, there were some folks that wanted to take away the autonomy of Austin Energy. There was a real effort to do away with Project Connect, which the voters voted and said they wanted a rail system. So we need to have a working relationship with the state of Texas. I'm proud of the fact that I served in the Texas Senate for 13 and a half years and have really strong relationships with the state of Texas. So overall, we had a very successful legislative session because I was able to talk to people and people know me and they were able to talk to me, tell me what they didn't like about something that the city had done before I got here. My guess is they'll do some of the same about what they don't like now that I am here. But that's what relationships are about. And we've seen results. I mean, we saw it legislatively, but we've also seen it. I mentioned it a few minutes ago when we were talking about how we address people living homeless. Think of the last time that the state of Texas was willing to give the city of Austin $65 million to address an issue. Well, that was because of me working with the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs and the governor's office to get that help. I've been working with our commissioner of the General Land Office, Dr. Don Buckingham, with regard to a building that's in it's her jurisdiction to deal with it, the old Hobby building, which is a pretty dilapidated building just a couple of blocks north of where we're sitting right now, to turn that into workforce housing. So those kinds of things are the benefits of having those relationships and not creating unnecessary enemies. I would consider it to be a much better relationship and a good relationship. I'm sorry,
Ready for re-election?
I'm sorry, what'd you say? Yeah. No, look, that's the plan. And I'm proud of what we've done in the past year. I've really enjoyed being mayor. Somebody asked me the question the other night on New Year's. I got asked a question by a reporter about, now you were mayor before and you're mayor again, why would you do that? And my answer was that it's because I love this city, and it shows how much I love this city. We've got a lot left to do. We have made change. We have fixed a bunch of things that needed to be fixed, but yet we still got work to do. So this job is one that I'm proud of and love, and so the plan is that that's what I do. Oh, I've been doing politics a while in this town, and I'm not surprised that in the reports that you're not seeing anything like that, because the way the politics works out and how you go about raising money. I haven't started raising any money myself, because the election's not until November. We sometimes get thinking about the March primaries, because that's how, that's just the focus. But you can't even file for this office until July. So I'm not surprised by any of that. And you hear rumors about people that might want to run, but I just do the job, and the politics will work out. Yeah, and let me be clear about I think there's a good chance that we will know who the next city manager is in April. That person may not start right then for personal reasons. They may be somebody with kids that are still in school and they want to finish out the school year, and then you're in the budget process and we may want to wait. Or they may have a professional obligation in their current job that keeps them there. So it may be later in the year before somebody starts. And I just want people to understand that. The other thing about it is that this is an enormously important decision. And while we have set a goal, I don't want anybody to feel rushed on this. I'm not going to feel rushed, because we want to do this right. That being said, I want to see somebody that has some experience in city government. I want to see somebody that understands public finance and understands what it means to be in a council manager form of government, that has some experience in working with districts and equity and making sure that we achieve those kinds of goals. I want someone that has been in a position to work on big projects. I mean, let's face it, we've got an airport that we're redoing. We've got a convention center project, and a lot of other things. I mentioned just those two. So I want somebody like that. And ultimately, I also want somebody that has a bias toward action. We're the 10th largest city in America. We're a focal point. The whole world looks at Austin, Texas, and not just for South by Southwest and F1 and those kinds of things. They look to us to set an example of how government ought to work. I think the last year, we've done a real good job of being in a position to turn to our next city manager and say, okay, we're providing a more stable government so that you can focus on our future and not have to fix the past. So I want someone that has a bias toward action to lead us into that future. I don't know what it'd be. Ray, appreciate you. Good. Have a good new year.